Chapter 37. Correct Understanding of Biblical Texts. The Interpretation of the Word and Promises of the Bible. Men have dedicated themselves to scrutinize the ancient testaments, torturing their minds in the study interpretation of the prophecies and the promises. Those among them who have come closer to the truth are the ones who have found the spiritual meanings of my teachings, because those still persist in the material interpretation and do not know or do not wish to find the spiritual meaning of my manifestations will have to suffer confusions and disappointments, just as the Jewish people suffered upon the arrival of the Messiah, whom they had imagined and awaited in a manner unlike the truth which was manifested to them. The erroneous idea that mankind formed my justice in the earliest times will disappear definitively to give way to true knowledge of it. Divine justice shall finally be understood as the light that emanates from the perfect love that exists in your Father. The Elohim men believed to be vengeful, cruel, rancorous, and inflexible will be felt in the depths of their hearts as a father who, in exchange for the offenses of his children, offers forgiveness, the father who persuades the sinner with tenderness, as the judge who, instead of condemning him who has gravely erred, providing him a new opportunity for salvation. How many imperfections men attribute to me in their ignorance, believing me capable of feeling anger, even though anger is a merely human weakness. If the prophet spoke to you of the holy anger of Elohim, I tell you now, interpret that expression as the divine justice. The men of the first era would not have understood it in any other way. Neither the dissolute nor the libertines would have paid any attention to the admonishments of the prophets if they had not been spoken to in that form. It was necessary that the inspiration of my envoys be expressed in terms that would impress the brains and hearts of those men of little spiritual development. The scriptures of the first era gathered the history of the people of Israel, conserving the names of their children, their accomplishments and failings, their works of faith and their weakness, their splendor and their falls. So that book would speak to each new generation of the evolution of that people in the worship of the sacred. The book preserved the names of the virtue and justice, loving patriarchs, models of strength and faith, just as it did of the far-seeing prophets through whose mouths the Most High always spoke when he saw the people on the edge of some danger. It also gathered the names of the perverse, the traitors, and the disobedient. For each case, each example is a lesson and at times a symbol. When I came to you as Yahusha to live among men, only when it was necessary did I take from the essence of those scriptures, from the sense of those works, to give my lessons, never exalting the material and superficial. Do you not remember that I mentioned the righteous Abel, that I pondered the patience of Job, and mentioned the wisdom and splendor of Solomon? Is it not true that many times I remembered Abraham and spoke of the prophets, and that referring to Moses, I told you that I did not come to destroy the laws of Moses, but to fulfill it? You need to study the divine revelations that I have made to you throughout time, arrive at an understanding of the metaphoric language through which it spoke to you, and sensitize thereby your spiritual senses in order to understand which are the words of Elohim and which the words of men, to find the essence of my teachings. Only through a spiritual point of view can you find the just and true interpretation of my word, whether it be given through the prophets, those that came to you through the conduit of Yahusha, or this one I give you today through the spokesman of the third era. When this humanity has found the true meaning of the law, the doctrine, the prophecies, and the revelations, it will have found the most beautiful and deepest of that which is related to its existence. Then it will know true justice, and it will be then that its heart presents itself to the real heaven. Then, too, it would know the meaning of atonement, purification, and restoration. The scriptures of the past eras could reveal to you what I repeat to you today. But man has dared to falsify my truths by spreading them in adulterated form. And therefore you have a humanity spiritually ill, tired, and alone. For this reason, my voice crying warning is heard through my spokesman, for I do not wish you to enter into confusion. If to your hands come altered writings of my disciples, who in the second era passed on my word to you, I will make you recognize which are the true words of Yahusha. Your conscience will regard as false those which are not in harmony with the divine concert of my love. Man has never lacked my revelations of spiritual enlightenment, but he has been afraid to analyze them. And I ask you, what can you know about the truth and the eternal if you stubbornly continue to flee the spiritual? Look at the material interpretation you have given my revelations for the first and second eras, though they speak only of the divine and spiritual. Do you see how you confuse the material nature with the spiritual, and with what lack of respect you convert the profound to the superficial and the elevated into what is low? Why have you done that? Because wishing to participate in the work of Elohim, you seek to adapt my doctrine to your material lives, to the human conveniences which are what most interest you. The lesson that I gave you in the second era, a lesson that many have not understood and others have forgotten, in this time will be made to be understood by all, and what is more, will be brought to fulfillment by my new teachings. The light of my Holy Spirit descends upon you, but why do you represent me in the form of a dove? Those figures and symbols should not be worshipped by my new disciples anymore. Understand my teaching, O my people. During the second era, my Holy Spirit manifests itself in the form of a dove in the baptism of Yahusha, because that bird in its flight resembles the flight of the Spirit. Its whiteness speaks of purity, and in its sweet and gentle look, there is a reflection of innocence. How would those unpolished men be made to understand the divine if it was not by adopting the figures known to them in the world? Hamashiach, who speaks to you at this moment, was represented by a lamb, and John himself in his prophetic vision beheld me thus. All this is due to the fact that if you seek me in each one of my works, you will always find in all creation an image of the author of life. In that era, I said to you that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a wealthy miser to enter the kingdom of Elohim. Now I say to you that it is necessary for those hearts to put aside their egotism and practice charity toward their brethren in order for their spirit to be able to pass through the narrow path of salvation. It is not necessary to deprive themselves of possessions and riches, but only of their egotism. I am rebuilding the temple that I referred to when I said to my disciples who marveled, contemplating the temple of Solomon, verily I say to you, that of it there shall be one stone left upon another, but I will reconstruct it in 3 days. I meant that any external worship, regardless how sumptuous it may seem to mankind, will disappear from the heart of men in order to raise it in its place, the true spiritual temple of my divinity. This is the third era, or that is to say, the third day, in which I shall finish reconstructing my temple. Elohim has no form, for if he had one, he would be limited, as are humans, and would not then be Elohim. His throne is perfection, justice, love, wisdom, the creating force, and eternity. Heaven is the supreme happiness that the spirit arrives at by traveling the road to perfection until it so elevates itself in wisdom and love, and it reaches a state of purity where neither sin nor pain can come. On some occasions, when my prophets have spoken of the spiritual life, they have done so through human forms and using objects known to you. The prophets saw thrones similar to those of the kings of earth, books, and beings in human form, curtained palaces, candelabras, the Lamb, and many other figures. Now, however, you should understand that all of that bore a meaning, a symbol, a divine sense, a revelation that had to be expressed to you in an allegorical form, since you were not prepared to understand another, more elevated one. Now it is time for you to correctly interpret the content of all the parables and teachings that are revealed to you in symbols, so that the significance of them penetrates your spirit and the symbolic form disappears. When you reach this understanding, your faith will be true, because it will have been built on the foundation of truth. If all who have been called would come to the table of the Elohim, where the delicacies that nourish the spirit are served, the table would be complete. But not all the guests have arrived. It is the nature of men to not know how to respond to the gifts of Elohim, and that is why you have seen many of your brothers pay no attention when you call them. Yet I tell you that these few who sit at my table and persist in listening in order to learn from me shall be those who make known to the multitudes the greatness of my word. The meaning of this doctrine that calls men to the reconstruction of a world that has come to its end in order to give way to another world that is brighter and more elevated. The revelation of Yahusha through the Apostle John. Everything was written in the book of the seven seals, which is found within Elohim, and whose existence was revealed to mankind through John, the apostle and prophet. The contents of that book only the divine Lamb has revealed to you, for there has not existed on earth or in heaven a just spirit who would be able to clarify the profound mysteries of love, of life, and justice of Elohim. But the divine Lamb, who is Hamashiach, broke the seals which locked the book of life to reveal its contents to his children. If the book of the prophecies of John has been regarded by some as an unfathomable mystery and considered by others within an erroneous interpretation, it is because humanity has not yet attained the necessary spirituality to understand what is represented there. And I can also tell you that not even the prophet understood what was inspired to him. John heard and saw, and being ordered to write, instantly obeyed, but he understood the message to be for men who would come a long time after him. When will men fix their attention on that which my beloved disciples left written? The form in which the revelations are written is strange, its sense is mysterious, and its words are infinitely profound. Who will understand them? The men who seek to understand the revelation of John analyze, observe, and study in deep absorption. Some come somewhat close to the truth, others believe they have gotten the meaning of the revelation, and so proclaim to the world. Others become confused or weary of seeking and end up denying the divine essence of that message. I come now to tell you, disciples of the third era, that if you truly wish to enter to the sanctuary and deeply understand those revelations, you must initiate yourselves into the prayer of spirit to spirit, just as John practiced in his exile. To begin with, you must understand that the divine revelation, although represented in material forms and figures, speaks entirely of the spiritual life of humanity, about its evolution, its struggle, its temptations and falls, and its profanations and disobediences. It speaks of the justice, my wisdom, and about my kingdom, my trials, and my communications with men, of their awakening, regeneration, and finally their spirituality. There I revealed the spiritual journey of men divided into epochs so that you might better understand the evolution of the spirit. So, of course, disciples, if the revelation refers to your spiritual life, it is only right that you look at it and study it from a spiritual point of view. For if you take it to analyze in relation to material events only, you will end up confused like so many others. Certainly, many material occurrences are and will be related to the fulfillment of those revelations, but you must know that those signs and events are also forms, figures, and examples that come to aid you in understanding my truth and in helping you to fulfill your destiny of raising yourselves up to me through the road of cleanliness of the spirit, of which my disciple John, advancing himself thousands of years over humanity, left you a luminous example by communicating spirit to spirit with his Elohim. My peace be with you.